The following You and the Law program is provided as a public service of the Chicago Bar Association. The statements made and views expressed in this program are those of the participants. The participants' views do not necessarily reflect the views of the Chicago Bar Association. This program is for informational purposes only. It does not provide legal advice.
Good evening. You and the Law is brought to you by the Chicago Bar Association. I'm attorney Ed Snyder, a member of the Chicago Bar Association. For the next half hour, we're going to be discussing the John Marshall Law School's Veterans Legal Support Center and Clinic, which is a student-operated clinic where veterans and service members can receive free assistance with issues related to veteran benefit claims and preparation of appeals. On our panel today, we have two ladies who are associated with the clinic. On my left is attorney Yelena Duterte. Ms. Duterte is a staff attorney with the Veterans Legal Support Center and Clinic. And on my right is Jillian Berener. Ms. Berener is a third-year student at the John Marshall Law School and the clinic's lead clinical student. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Ed.
I think it would be helpful to get some background information about our panel members and their relationship with the clinic. So, Yelena, what has been your association with the clinic?
Well, in 2010, I was a student at John Marshall Law School, and I started working at the Veterans Legal Support Center and Clinic as a clinical student. So I was able to take cases at that point with the supervision as of an attorney. And from there, I progressed on my legal career and started working there as a staff attorney.
Oh, very good. Jillian, what's been your experience there?
I've been at the clinic for nearly 2 years now. I started as a clerk, and I worked my way up to a clinical student, and now I'm a lead clinical student at the clinic.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Yelena, let's give some background information on the clinic. When and how did the clinic get started?
The clinic began in 2006 when three students, Mike Barnacle, Nick Henry, and Ryan Coward, came together and realized that there is a need for legal support in the veteran community. And so it was a student-initiated clinic. They went to a couple of professors, Brian Klaus and Joe Butler, and really got the wheels turning and getting the school on board with starting a new clinic.
Mm-hmm. Now, how did you hear about the clinic and why did you get involved with the clinic?
I heard about the clinic when I started at the John Marshall Law School. There's a couple clinics at John Marshall. There's the Fair Housing Clinic, there's a Veterans Clinic, and at the time I think those were the only two big clinics at the school. And my dad's a Vietnam veteran. He was drafted in 1970, mm-hmm. So it kind of pulled on my heartstrings to get involved in the clinic.
Well, very interesting. Jillian, how did you hear about the clinic and why did you get involved?
I heard about the clinic when I started at John Marshall, and I really enjoyed the clinical aspect and the opportunities that a clinic provides for students. I also have family members who are veterans. My grandfather was in World War II, and I have friends who are currently in the military. So for me, it was a great way to give back and mm-hmm. get really good experience as well.
Very good. Yelena, what is the purpose of the clinic? What does it do?
Well, the purpose of the clinic is to, one, serve veterans, make sure that veterans are well represented in the legal system, especially in front of the Department of Veterans Affairs. Also, it is for a educational resource for students to learn how to discuss very sensitive topics with clients, to learn that client-attorney interaction. It's really good for writing and research and communication with clients, so kind of a dual purpose.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so in terms of the support it provides for veterans, so what areas does it get involved in?
Particularly appeals in the VA benefits claims, so mm-hmm. service-connected benefits. When a veteran comes home and has a disability from service, we get that connected through the VA system.
Oh, I see. All right, so you're dealing with the VA as part of your negotiations. Okay.
That's correct.
Now, how does the clinic sounds like a very excellent opportunity for students to get some experience in these different areas. How does the legal clinic differ from the classroom environment at a law school?
It really makes, it helps students become practice ready. John Marshall is a very big proponent of practice ready, making sure that students get the experience you would get as a law clerk or an attorney when you start out in a small or big firm. Learning how to do research in a real life experience and dealing with clients and explaining that research. So not just writing something on a page, but speaking to a client and explaining what these laws really mean to their case.
Jillian, what has been your experience, the difference between being able to participate in a clinic versus just going to class?
Sure. I think the clinic provides, as Yelena said, a lot of practice-ready experience, but it makes you understand what life would be like perhaps as a lawyer in a firm or working in a government office. It's a little bit more of a preview of life as an attorney rather than just sitting in a classroom and reading cases. And while there's obviously a time for that, it's great, especially as you get older and further in law school, to see how your skills are put into play and to have the opportunity to use those skills to help real people.
Yeah, that's it. And I visited the clinic, and it's very interesting. They have a very nice setup in terms of computers for the students to use, and there's also some nice facilities for the people, representatives to meet with the veterans and so on. But why is it important for students to participate in these clinics?
I think it's a really good idea for students to participate in clinics because it gives them the sense of a community, and it gives them the sense of, you're not just being thrown into a law firm setting as an attorney. You kind of have someone supervising you. So you're not on your own. You're not jumping into the deep end. You have a lifeguard, as we like to say, and you're still in the shallow end. You get to do research, you get to help clients, but you have somebody looking over your shoulder, making sure that you're doing it correctly and that you'll be a good advocate for that client.
And you actually have the students dealing with these veterans in terms of their legal issues. You actually have them filling out whatever applications are appropriate and so on. With of course, attorney supervision.
Yeah,
but they actually have a client dealing relationship with these veterans.
Yeah, the student is their case manager, so they're their direct contact with the clinic. So that's who they speak to every day. And obviously the attorneys get involved a little bit later to make sure that everything's going smoothly. But the students have that direct one-on-one contact.
Okay, and is it a particular class of student? Is it second year or third year? Or even
typically second or third year.
Okay.
We don't usually have first year students.
A little bit too early.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Jillian, how's your experience been with these in terms of why do you think it's important for law students to get involved in these clinics, particularly the Veterans Clinic?
I think, as Yelena touched upon, it's really invaluable to have that experience of working one-on-one with the client. Oftentimes as a law clerk at a firm or even at a government office, you don't have that opportunity to work with the client one-on-one and to have that kind of interaction that you need to be prepared to be working in the real world as an attorney. That's really helpful. Having the time management, case management skills that we require in the clinic and that we use every day is also very helpful. And again, the body of law, the research, it's something that you don't always learn in school. We have a veterans advocacy class at the school, but it's not something that's used in every field of law, and that's very interesting to get to know deeply as we do in the clinic.
Do you enjoy meeting with the veterans?
I love the personal interaction that we get to have, and I think that's really valuable. For me, it's much more fulfilling than just looking at a casebook.
Do you actually meet with do you meet just with the veterans, or sometimes you meet with the family members of the veterans?
It really depends on the case. Sometimes we work directly with the family members, sometimes we work directly with the veteran, sometimes we work directly with both. It really depends on the case. We work with some widows or widowers of veterans as well.
And there's actually rooms for the veteran family to come down and meet with you and into these separate rooms, so they're not out in public in any sense, any sort of a public domain situation. They're in separate rooms talking with someone about a legal matter.
In our new facility, we have great interview rooms that are set up for us to meet one-on-one with veterans or their family members, and that's really helpful to have a place where we can meet privately and quietly to discuss the legal issue.
Yelena, how many veterans legal support clinics are there in this country?
I believe there's 18. right now, but they keep popping up all over the country. Not new law schools. Law schools are reaching out to even us and William Mary's Law School about starting their own clinic and making sure they can serve their population. A lot of states that don't have veterans clinics really want to start these veterans clinics to help their own veterans with VA benefits or in the treatment court models.
So how many have you heard about? How many separate clinics are there?
18.
18?
Yes.
Okay. Are they located in particular areas or just?
William Mary's in Virginia. Stetson is in Florida. Nova Law School's in Florida. Thomas Jefferson's in San Diego. So they're kind of all over the
pretty
place.
much the place, not so much the East Coast orientation or whatever.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Now, what distinguishes the John Marshall Clinic from these other clinics?
A couple different things. We focus mainly on appealing VA benefit claims, and in that, in appealing this, we look at all of the legal issues, and then we look for pro bono attorneys in our community to help out with these cases. We get so many calls about VA benefits, about 400 a year, and we can't really take all 400 and take representation on all of them. So we send it out to our pro bono network of attorneys. In other clinics, they will do initial claims, so they'll start the process. In a clinic in Arizona, they do misdemeanor representation in Veterans Treatment Court. So they do the criminal side. So there are very different models that Veterans Treatment Courts can follow.
Well, we talked about this a little bit more, but let's go into a little bit more detail. What types of assistance can veterans service members receive from the clinic?
Typically, it's VA benefit appeals, as I stated earlier, but also just to, if they have any other legal issues, they can reach out to our clinic and we can help them find a good referral. So, in Chicago, there are so many free legal resources that do very different areas of the law. So try to put them in contact with the best resource for them.
Okay. And can you give us some examples of those resources in terms of what are these?
The Legal Assistance Foundation is a big one. Equip for Equality. They do, if there's any elderly abuse in nursing homes, or they do ADA employment law issues with discrimination. So that's kind of their main focus.
We get a lot of requests for help with family law issues as well, which we don't do in our clinic, but there are several legal organizations in the Chicago area and outside of Chicago that work on family law for either a pro bono or reduced fee, and we have a lot of referrals that we give for that type of issue.
I see. And tell us about these pro bono attorneys. You said that you can frequently turn them over. What's an example of that? Are we talking about organizations or actually talking about individual attorneys?
Usually individual attorneys, either small firm or big firms. They really want to bulk up their pro bono hours and really want to help veterans on issues that they believe are really important to the Chicagoland community. So we train them. We have a 3-hour CLE that trains these attorneys. They become VA accredited, and then they can take cases. So they're willing and ready to take cases from us.
Okay, tell us about the VA accredited. What's the significance of that?
To represent a veteran or a widow or a widower before the VA, you must be a VA accredited if you're an attorney. So there's a kind of a CLE that you have to take to learn about the area of law.
So that's a 3-hour course, you say?
It is.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that's taught at John Marshall as well.
Yeah, we teach it about 2 or 3 times a year.
Okay, and that's just and that one course is all one attorney would need in order to have this status of being able to deal with the VA.
That's correct. So the first is you do 3 credits, and then every 2 years you have to redo the 3 credits just to keep you up on any new changes in the law and refresh you on any areas in the law that maybe you might not be familiar with.
And then the VA, you have to file some sort of documentation with VA show you, so the attorney has to show them they've achieved this level of expertise?
That's correct. It's a self-certification letter that you just send into the VA to let them know that you've met that requirement.
I see. That's very interesting. And that allows them, and once they have the requirement, once they've satisfied the requirement, then these attorneys can provide services to all veterans.
That's correct.
Is it just veterans or is it also service members?
Service members typically don't file in the VA system.
Okay.
There's only a couple times they'll do that. It's usually reservists.
Okay, strictly.
Will.
So strictly veterans is primarily the veteran benefits. Okay.
That's correct.
Now, frequently in litigation, there's the cost of lawyers, but there's these ancillary costs of filings and all the other fees. So are there any out-of-pocket costs that if a veteran wants to use your services that they will be expected to pay for?
We don't charge for our services, but there are sometimes where the veteran has to pay out-of-pocket expenses, including medical reports. If their personal doctor at the VA might not want to write a medical report for them, getting an expert to write that medical report, something that we can connect a disability to their service.
There's a fee for that service.
Typically, experts will not do it for free, but if we can find one for them,
Okay.
we try to do that as well.
And but what about filing costs? I mean, are there any court costs and so on?
In the VA system, there are not any. There's no filing fees until you get to the Court of Appeals for veterans claims.
Yeah, right.
And that's just a $100 fee, and that would be something they would have to pay out of pocket.
Okay, so that's a rather nominal fee.
Mm-hmm.
And now, is that in terms of dealing with the VA? Is that all done in the Chicago area? Are we dealing with an office in the Chicago area? Or are we dealing with someplace else?
The initial claims go to the Chicago Regional Office. It's on Taylor Street, Taylor and Damon, right, really close to the Jesse Brown VA Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
But once you appeal it from there, you will go to DC, where there's the
Okay.
Board of Veterans Appeals.
Okay, so how, if it goes to appeal, I mean, when you're dealing with the VA office in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
do your attorneys go over to that office and deal with them at that office?
We do. They don't have hearings at that level, but we do go over there to make sure that things were filed correctly, that everything is in their system,
Mm-hmm.
and just to discuss the case, to bounce ideas off of their employees there.
Okay. Now, what happens if the case is now, it goes to the DC VA office? Then how do you deal with the office in DC, Washington, DC?
There's a couple different ways that you can have a hearing with the Board of Veterans Appeals at the DC level. And you can choose to go to DC for a hearing. You can choose a traveling board hearing, so they come to Chicago twice a year.
Okay, so they come here twice a year.
Mhm.
I see.
And then there's a video teleconference hearing where you can have at your local VA. So if you are from downstate Illinois and you don't want to travel all the way to Chicago, you can go to your local VA hospital for that hearing.
Well, see, that's coming, it's the 20th century way of doing legal board.
Most
Okay.
definitely.
Why don't you just tell us what you do as a staff attorney for the clinic?
On a typical day, I am reviewing students' work product, making sure that they are communicating with their veterans properly, and making sure that the clinic is running smoothly. Their students have questions about different legal issues, including just an intake. Somebody calls in, and it's something that's really outside of a student's wheelhouse of knowledge. So they'll put them on hold or tell them they'll call them back, and we'll discuss the issue so we can kind of pull out what information we need from them.
Okay. Well, Jillian, let's get into your participation in the clinic. Now, how long have you been associated with the clinic, and what have you done while you're at the clinic?
I began working at the clinic at the beginning of my second year of law school, so coming up on 2 full years now. I began as a JIV clerk, which is our program that works with the justice-involved veterans. So we work with the petty offense courts and the misdemeanor veterans treatment courts in the federal court here and the Cook County courts. So I did that for a semester. I then became a benefits clerk and worked solely on the benefits side, and I've been a clinical student for a year now.
Now, based on your experience at clinic, how do you find that different from your other positions you've had as a law student at John Marshall?
Compared to my other internships, I have much more client contact in the clinic. I also have much more independence. You're able to really be the case manager and that point of contact for the veteran or their family member. You are able to, you're not necessarily reporting to an attorney above you and giving them your research. You're putting that research into analysis of the case, and you're determining whether there's a viable claim or not, and you determine whether the veteran has an appeal that is ready to be sent to our pro bono attorney network.
Okay. Now, what do you do as and I think you answered this a little bit already, but what do you do as a lead clinical student? What exactly is your involvement then?
Sure. Well, as a
lead student.
As a lead clinical student, I typically supervise the students in the clinic that are on my team, so to say. I talk with them about their cases. Each student has a couple of cases at a time, and so I talk with them about the progress of their cases, the next steps. We do a lot of idea bouncing off each other and brainstorming, making sure that students' work product is suitable and well written and proper in the law. And I also do plenty of client contact of my own. I work on my own veterans cases, and I do a lot of intake and working with clients or veterans who walk into the clinic or call in and need help.
Okay. Is there any, can you give us some examples of typical veteran cases you're involved in, have been involved in?
I've worked on a couple of different types of cases. We get a lot of claims for hearing loss and tinnitus from other veterans, from older veterans, excuse me.
Oh, hearing loss, okay.
Hearing loss and tinnitus. That's a very typical claim that we see because a lot of older veterans and a lot of veterans who've been around artillery or planes are going to have hearing loss or tinnitus.
Yes.
So that's a pretty common ailment that we see. We see quite a bit of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD.
Yes.
And that's a common claim. We also do a lot of work with Agent Orange claims,
Yes.
which are conditions that are presumptively linked to Agent Orange, which is a pesticide that was used in Vietnam. So there are several conditions that the VA recognizes as presumptively linked to Agent Orange, and those claims can be complicated for veterans, but they're actually not so complicated to work from our end. And that's a very common one that we see with Vietnam era veterans.
Yes, yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah, that's very interesting. Now, in terms of dealing with a veteran's claim, is there anything the veteran can do to sort of expedite the processing of their claim? I mean, I know the law school does it efficiently, but in terms of once it's set off to the VA, anything they can do to sort of accelerate the use?
As far as being sent off to the VA, obviously I think everyone has heard about the backlog, and there's a very overloaded process of the VA right now. There's a lot of claims going through and not a lot of resources. There's not much to do once you're in the VA process, but our veterans are great at this, but really keeping in contact with the clinic or whoever's handling your case is really helpful. Sending over all documents as you get them or as you find them or if you receive them from the VA. Keeping your case manager up to date on the progress of your case is very helpful to having a full claim and having a properly adjudicated claim.
Are there any particular cases that are sort of stand out in your mind as being something that were very special cases?
Well, we have a very big case that we had about last year, I think, in the clinic where we were able to secure a very large amount of back pay for a veteran who had been really deserving it for a very long time, and he was very, very grateful to our clinic for helping him. Very
good. Now, Yelena, the clinic has been expanded since it was formed, so how has it been expanded? What has happened?
The one big way, I think Jillian touched on this, the Justice Involved Veterans Program. We work in Veterans Treatment Court here at the felony level at Cook County. Also at the misdemeanor level in the federal courts, it's called the Petty Offense Day. They have one day a month where veterans who get tickets on VA property, federal property, come to this court call, and we try to help them either obtain services for housing, employment, mental health, addiction services. So it's more of a holistic program, a very diversionary system. Some of these tickets can be possession of alcohol or open container, disorderly conducts, where somebody might be frustrated with the VA system, might be drunk on VA property, and it's something that we can look at the underlying issue rather than giving them a ticket and charging them for it.
Oh, it's quite an expanded area there.
It is.
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, does the clinic, has obviously been a very significant asset of John Marshall. Does the clinic have any ongoing partnerships or programs with other organizations that help the veterans?
The big one is Illinois Joining Forces. It's where we're trying to get all of the legal services to work together when a veteran is in need of legal services to find the correct resource. So it's a website that you can go on to and you can reach out to all of the legal resources in your area.
I see.
The other one is the American Bar Association.
Okay.
They just started a program with the Department of Veterans Affairs to attack the backlog. And the ABA has come to us to help them attack the backlog with them. Since we are the experts in the area, they wanted us to be kind of the second in command and help them out with this.
Okay. Are there any other law schools in Chicago area that are involved in the VA assistance?
DePaul's Law School was going to start a veterans clinic. I have not heard what their progress is currently, but it was a program they wanted to start to help particularly homeless veterans on all legal issues.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, what about veterans or service members who call the clinic and they have some problems that ordinarily the clinic doesn't deal with? What do you do? How are you able to help them?
We try to find the best referral for them. We have a database of kind of areas of law and cities and try to intersect those two things to make sure that they have the correct jurisdiction and the correct area of law that organization handles. So we try to direct them to the best organization.
I see. So, and they can call in, get that information. Now,
of course.
How can a veteran get in contact, or a service member or a veteran get in contact with the clinic? What do they do?
Typically, veterans can stop by our clinic. Our address is 315 South Plymouth Court. It's State and Jackson is the big intersection over there.
Mm-hmm.
Or they can call into our clinic. It's 312-360-2656, and that's usually where we do most of our intakes is over the phone.
But you do have a website.
We do.
And what is the website address?
www.jmls.edu.
Okay.
And then that's /veterans.
Oh, very good. Well, listen, I see we're just about out of time. I want to thank our two panelists, Attorney Yelena Duterte and law student Jillian Berener, for giving us some very useful information concerning the John Marshall Law School's Veterans Legal Support Center and Clinic. And I also want to thank you for watching this program brought to you by the Chicago Bar Association. Of course, if you wish to consult with an attorney concerning a legal matter, the Chicago Bar Association's Attorney Referral Service can provide name and contact information of attorneys who are members of the Chicago Bar Association and who practice in various areas of law, including military law. Again, thank you, ladies, for joining us. Appreciate it. And thank you for joining us, and have a pleasant day.